Django admin commands are a powerful way to add additional switches to your manage.py command. A typical use case is having your model and wanting to import some starter data. Of course, you can also do that with Django fixtures, and I will drop a link to a video we did below. So the manage.py has a dump data and a load data, and you can give it JSON, XML, YAML. Sometimes you don't want to have a fixed output feeding into manage.py. And in that case, you can use Django admin to write your own command and do whatever you want. And how it works is in your app, you make a management commands directory structure, and then you make a module. You can call it anything, but the name of this module becomes the name of the switch. And you will inherit from base command and override the handle. If you want to have extra arguments given to the script, you can also override the add arguments. Well, in this case, I'm just going to use the standard handle. And I wanted to just make a quick article model, sync it to the database, and import our feed from our blog. So from the articles, right? The PyBits articles. So I think we only have the last 10, but for exercise sake, that's fine. I went to view source to find the feed. And here we have an XML feed, and we can use Feedparser to easily parse that feed. So at my terminal, I already made a virtual environment and pip installed Django and Feedparser. Let me first quickly demo how Feedparser works. I can call parse on the Feedparser object and give it a feed. And that will give me a dictionary type. I will just put it in red for now. I made a typo. And this gives a Feedparser util Feedparser dict. And that's actually a very interesting data structure. I will explain in a bit why. So that gives a whole blurb of parsed data. As a dict, it has keys. And I'm interested in entries. And as it's a dictionary, you would expect to get the entries like this. That works, but it's actually pretty elegant. You can also do attribute lookups. I actually went to the source code to the Feedparser util.py, into the class Feedparser dict. And this is actually the code that's responsible for it. Because if I do a typo here, I get an attribute error. And there's only one in this file. So it's actually cool. It delegates the getAttr to the getItem. So pretty clever dunder code here. So when I do an attribute lookup, it actually tries to do a dictionary lookup and it catches the exception. So really cool. So that makes that we can do dictionary.entries, and we don't have to do it with the dictionary notation, which is a bit more concise. Anyway, we're getting 10 articles. I can save the first one in a variable. And to keep this simple, I'm only going to look at title, summary, and a link. And the link is actually in the links list. So we need to get the first item, and that Feedparser dict is nested all the way down, so I can do the same attribute lookup here. Right? So these are the three things I'm going to put in a Django model. So let's start a project. As explained in the previous video, I used a dot, so my directory structure is pretty lean. And I can start an app, blog, and now we have an app. So let's make some models. And I already used an article model on our platform, so I'm just going to copy that in. I don't care about the author and the publish date. No, not for now. This is just it's not the point of the Django command. So we have a title of max length 500 characters. It should be unique. I got a link for which we can use the URL field, and I got a summary which is text field, so it hasn't got any max length. And it can be, well, in this case I don't want that to be blank. It should have a value when we create an object. I need to put the blog app into the installed apps for the migrations to be picked up. Of course, in a real world app, I would load those environment variables. That's another video I recently did, which I will link below. But right now I want to just go to installed apps and add my app. Then I run make migrations. It sees the article model, and then I run migrate to sync it to the database. And again, going back to settings, by default Django just uses a local DB SQLite database, right? Which has been written to disk right now. Then I can just quickly run server to see if everything is okay, which it is. And let's now work on the management command. Before I do that, let's quickly look at the switches that are available. So we already met two, which was make migrations and migrate, which was to respectively make migration files and sync into the database. Another one is create super user, that does exactly that. And those are existing Django commands that ship with Django. So let's make one in our blog app. So I'm going into the blog app, and I'm going to make that directory structure we mentioned before, which is management commands. And I can use -p with the make dir command to make the directory structure recursively. And inside this new directory, I'm going to, what shall we call it? Article importer maybe. That will do it for now. And I'm going to copy the boilerplate code from the Django documentation. And I'm going to get rid of the add argument. We don't need that for now. Let's give it a help string. Import pybytes article feed into the database. And I'm going to do an absolute import of the blog models, import article, which is our model. And here I'm just going to wipe this out for a second. Maybe I put this in a Vim buffer. The standard out right, you might need that. All right, so this is the basic structure. I'm inheriting from base command. Command error we don't really use, so let's get rid of that. And I'm going to override the handle method. Now here you can just do anything, right? So the code we wrote before, we're just going to basically port over here, and then we're going to, when we loop over the entries, we're going to import them into the database. Oh, by the way, this is Jedi Vim, so I get this nice autocomplete as I type. So really nice. I can see the signature of the parse method. So I only need the URL, file, stream, or string, which is that constant I just defined. Then for entry in feed entries, I'm going to use the ORM to create an article. Again, nice autocomplete. Jedi, shout out to Jedi Vim for helping me here. So we need a title, link, summary. And as you remember from the REPL session, those will come in as entry.title, entry.links first element href, and the summary is at the base level. So this will loop through the entries and create the article. Of course, we can make it a bit more robust to first check if the article is in the database, but as we have set the model to be unique true, I think upon running this the second time it will error out, and then we can be a bit more idiomatic by just catching that exception. That's actually a cool point, that the more we can put into the models and the database logic, the more effective and concise our code will be, because now we just have to catch off an exception and we don't need that extra if to first do another ORM query to see if the article is in the database. So let's run this. Go one up. And without any switches, it should now start listing the new script. So here's my app called blog, and here's the actual script. And it just did it, I guess. Let's open the database. I use DB browser for SQLite. And blog article, boom. Here are our last 10 articles. Really nice. And what happens if I run it again? There you go. I get this dbutils integrity error because it tries to insert the article again, but it actually complains about link. So does that make sense? Yeah, okay. Well, link is unique as well. So I forgot to mention that. I was constantly referring to title, but the link is unique as well. And that's the one we're seeing in the stack trace, right? So to make that a bit more friendly, let's just catch that exception. And then I can also show the standard output and standard error. So remember I put this on the buffer before. We can use the self std out to write something. And we can also use stdr. And the documentation states that using those, it's easier to test your custom command. So here we can just say that's at the end. And here we can catch that exception. We import it. Here we can maybe send something to standard error. All right, let's try that again. And I got a typo, or unindent does not match any outer indent. In relation to imported, this statement, so 1, 2. All right, so I'm getting the errors, but then of course, when that happens, this is wrong. So rather than assuming that we're always going to import, I'd rather have a counter here of how many I imported, which is much more robust, right? So import count. So we start import count at 0, and after every success, we increase it by 1, right? And then in this case, we should see 0. Also notice that the standard error got colored, which is nice. Let's run it again from scratch. So I'm removing the SQLite database. I'm running migrate again to make a new database. And now 10 imported, 10 what? 10 articles. And second time, 10 errors, right? Article It's already in the DB, 0 articles imported. So yeah, that's a quick demo of how Django commands work. So again, you make a management commands directory structure, and then you make a script, and the name of the script is what the flag will be for your manage.py command. So again, that's here. And the structure is that you inherit from base command. The convention is to call it command, but you inherit from base command, and you override the handle. If you want arguments, you can also override add arguments, but in this case, this is just a single operation. Right, hope this is helpful. See you in the next video.